Welcome everybody to this edition of Hope Talks. It is my great honor to have Jojopahmaria Nsoroma with me, who's been a teacher of mine for many years and helping me reclaim my humanity and my space as a leader. Welcome, Jojopah, to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carmen. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm grateful to you for doing this. Yeah.
Well, when I thought about who I wanted to talk to after, I took the week off last week of Hope Talks because I really wanted to take a break and let what was happening happen and just give space to all the voices of the ache and pain and suffering that needed that is bubbling up in our community and culture and country. I wanted that to be what was heard last week. And so when I thought about coming out of last week, who I wanted to talk with, you came to mind because you've been a teacher of mine. As a shaman, you've helped me reflect and see pieces of myself that I don't know that I would have had a chance to access without you.
I see.
So thank you for the wisdom that you bring. And I wanted to have a conversation about what are you thinking about? For me, I'm always thinking about hope and how do we inspire people to hang on and hold on when they've been hurt.
Yes, definitely. I was a mess last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as you know, broadcast weekly and videotape. And I really was at a point by Saturday that I can't do this. I can't do this. I was just so enraged, so heartbroken, in so much grief. And it was like the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd became the stick that broke my camel's back, as obviously it did for people around the world. Because, we'd heard about Breonna and we'd heard about Ahmaud. And as a Black person growing up in America, I'd just been conditioned. And I'll say this too, especially if you get a college education where you are expected to be on stage in your life as a Black person representing the Black race. So you stuff it in and you keep going. But this time, Carmen, it was not business as usual for me. But I got still and I opened up to my God and I said, okay, what do I do? And the answer I got back was, you have a platform, use it, be the light, be the beacon, go off script. And within 20 minutes after that message, I get a call from my friend saying, a Black woman, did you see the video of the police taking a knee and asking for forgiveness from the protesters? And I'm like, what?
Right.
And that just broke up something in me even more to say, okay, here's the opening. And, since then, I've just been collecting videos of that, of images of policemen being emotionally and spiritually intelligent and conscious. I think that we need to be promoting those images and we need to have an expectation that this is how it's going to be. I don't think we let the brutality and really the transference of pain shut down the vision that we need to be holding and what we need to be believing. Yeah.
That's one of the greatest lessons I've learned from you is this idea that we need to combine our emotions and our humanity with how we show up in the world, right?
Yes, so important.
Leaders, right?
And important.
That's really important to what we're here to do together, that I bring that to my work at Sojourner, right?
Yes.
Trying to have a hope of creating an environment where people can heal if they've been hurt, or to stop hurting others if they are hurting others. I've got to bring my humanity to that, and my emotions are part of that. Definitely. I think, as we've talked before, we get taught that we leave that humanity at the door when we go to work, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And we're going to have to create a different future, and it's going to require that we bring our emotions along with us, and have space to feel them and to integrate them, because it walks with us, as you say,
Yes,
right?
yes, exactly. It's
Mhm.
there. May
I
I share with you excerpt from Martin Luther King Jr.'s last speech that
absolutely.
we talk hope, we talk, as we're talking about emotional and spiritual intelligence. I just this and let me just share it, and
Yes.
then we can talk because it's just amazing. I'm gonna pull this up on my screen. So, this is his last speech delivered the night before he gets assassinated at the Bishop Charles Mason Temple, it's called, in Memphis, Tennessee. And there was a storm raging outside as he's doing this. Now, most people are familiar with the end of the speech, and it's about, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. But we rarely hear about this beginning of the speech, which
Mm.
I find mind blowing, Carmen, because he starts off saying, if God were to ask me what time period I would want to live in, how would I respond? And he goes through, I'd start off with the pharaohs in Egypt, and then but he says I wouldn't stop there, and then he goes, oh, I would be with Aristotle and Socrates, I'd be at their feet listening and learning, but I wouldn't stop there. And then he goes into the Renaissance, and he goes through these periods, right, of man's evolution. And then he says, and I quote, strangely enough, I would turn to the Almighty and say, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I will be happy. Now, that's a strange statement to make because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick. Trouble is in the land. Confusion all around. That's a strange statement. But I know somehow that only when it's dark enough can you see the stars. And I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that men, in some strange way, are responding. Something is happening in our world. The masses of people are rising up. And wherever they are assembled today, whether they are in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is always the same. We want to be free. Wow.
Oh my God, Jojopah. Thank you for reading that for me. Wow. You could speak those same words about today.
Bam.
Whew, Lord, this idea that he would want to live in this moment in time. What that makes me think of is the possibilities that we have as human beings and the gifts we have to bring to these moments of darkness, right? That you can see the stars more clearly in the dark. Perhaps maybe our purpose, we can see our purpose more clearly when we're in the dark or times of trouble. That's a profound paragraph. Thank you for reading it.
Oh, it's just absolutely incredible. But I think, what it does for me, Carmen, because this is something that I don't think we think about enough or talk about enough as a society, and that is about freedom.
Mm.
And I'm talking about the freedom that is the philosophical roots of the Declaration of Independence and the US Constitution. It assumes and it requires civility and social solidarity. But we are talking about this freedom, this ability as a human being
Mhm.
to be respected, to be supported,
Right.
to not be seen as disposable or dismissive. Um, little history lesson quick. I think, to me, the deeper psychological piece that has gone on in regards to the relationship between Blacks and whites in America around the issue of pain is that white Europeans coming to the Americas brought with them what they had learned and inherited from the feudal system.
Mm-hmm.
And in the feudal system, you have this thing about the whipping child, the whipping child, because the king, you know, and those who were ruling were continued sovereign and considered divine. So you didn't beat the prince and the princesses, but you had these little whipping children that you beat
Took the
in
place.
their place. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
That gets carried over into slavery.
Right.
So there were these whipping children in slavery. And what that psychologically has meant is that white people have not had to take on feeling their pain, being responsible for their pain, and transforming their pain because they could transfer it.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
And for us as Black people, your ability to withstand the transference of pain meant that you could survive. So the freedom I'm talking about, and this brings me so much joy and so much hope, is busting up those feudalistic belief systems deeply embedded in our culture, so that we can all be freed up. Because when you can't take responsibility for your pain, and you can't, number one, recognize it, accept it, and shift it, you will suffer. Whereas my grandmother said, suck sorrow. You're going to suck sorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're going to make other people suffer around.
Right. And if you believe that you're supposed to be a victim to life in order to be here and have your basic needs met, you're going to suffer.
Right. Right.
So I have so much hope in my heart that we are now at this crossroads to get to the full experience of freedom, because we haven't had that yet in this culture.
I like how you put that, the full experience of freedom. You know, at Sojourner, we do this work to help people free themselves in their individual lives. And I believe that at that intersection of individual freedom is this interlocked, that it is interlocked with racism and oppression that actually holds up violence in our culture and normalizes violence. I think you can't have individual freedom without collective freedom.
You know, the other thing I keep in mind is that this notion of human evolution, this notion that we are more than just a physical experience in this world, that we really do have multiple intelligences, of which to me, emotional and spiritual are required for the times we are living in and what's to come. But these concepts, even though, I mean, it really has been around for thousands of years. I mean, indigenous people got this, right?
Right.
But in modernity, we got separated from it. And there are some specific historical reasons why that happens. But it really has just been since the 1950s with Maslow's introduction to what is considered positive psychology. Instead of saying what's wrong with that person, he looked at what's right and what can we strengthen.
Right.
And his levels of development are so powerful, because the ultimate level, once you're finished with getting your basic needs met, once you're finished with realizing and believing that you belong, that you're loved, that you're safe, once you understand that you have a capacity, that there is something that you can contribute, you know, and once you can look inside of yourself and say, I love me, I'm enough, I'm okay. The next level to that, he called self-transcendence. And it's all about spiritual connection. And what spirituality really means, because it's not about religion, you know, religion holds within it spirituality, but spirituality is really our ability to be very clear about what is essential to us, what really matters to us. Yeah, what at the end of the day, what really, really counts And, this is new stuff
Right. Don't you think
for
that COVID,
modernity.
don't you think COVID has given us an opportunity to figure that out, to reflect on those deeper questions, right? Who am
Exactly.
I as a
Exactly.
human being? What am I here to do?
Right.
How
And
can
what's
I do?
essential, right?
Right, right.
What's essential?
Exactly.
Do I really need to be running out to the store 5 and 6 times a week?
No,
Obviously not.
exactly. Right. And that so much of our lives are bound up in this false pretending our identity and how harmful the culture is we live in, right? That even before COVID, that people are just so, we've had this rise in mental illness, this rise in suicide and opioid deaths and
Right,
increase
right.
in violence, which are all to me symptoms of this sickness of the heart, that our
Exactly.
hearts are just aching
Hmm.
for not only connection to ourselves, but connection to each other. I've often said,
Right.
uh, the antidote to violence is human connection. You know, it's connection to ourselves
Hmm.
and connection to other people.
Right.
We're not born as violent people wanting to hurt others.
Yeah, not at all.
Right.
And, I truly believe that, um, industrialism, and as a necessary step in human evolution, but the consequences of it were that we turned ourselves into the Energizer Bunny
Hmm.
and
Yep.
we roboticized our work life.
Right.
That's why I am so happy that so many people got the experience of what it's like to work from home,
Right.
to have to say to the people on the Zoom call, oh, my kid just fell down. I got to get off. I got to go,
Yeah,
It's
or the
like,
cat jumps in the
and the
screen.
cat jumps in the screen, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because that's more normal and natural.
Right.
It's unnatural
Right.
to, decompartmentalize, compartmentalize your life in the ways that we have asked people to do in
Right.
order to put food on the table and have a roof over your head.
I have said this since the beginning. I'm very concerned about the mental health impact of isolation and loneliness for people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um,
Exactly, exactly.
and what we're going to have to deal with as we come up out or live in COVID for months to come.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it drives me back to connectivity. Thank God for technology too, right? That we can.
Yes.
You're in California, I'm here in Milwaukee, so I can do you in the dark. You're sitting in the sunlight, but yet we can still connect. Um, so Jojopah, you bring such wisdom. I am so grateful and honored to be connected to you, and I want to remind people again the opportunity that you have to make a difference in other people's lives, in your own life. I also invite Jojopah, who wrote a book recently. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Oh, can I do a little commercial? Okay, let me
Absolutely.
see. It's behind my head right over here.
That's
The Wisdom Walk to Self Mastery. So, Carmen, as you know, and I'll share that I had been working in human services for, at that point, probably about 25 years. And I knew there was something more needed. Hadn't met up with Maslow at this point.
Mhm.
But I knew there was something more. I knew that from the work I was doing in predominantly Black, challenged economically and socially communities around the country, that it wasn't just enough to feed people, to house people, to make sure people had access to education. There was something more that was missing. And that opened me up, that curiosity, that seeking to step onto my spiritual path.
Mhm.
And in doing that, I got connected with these two wonderful African shamans from Burkina Faso, West Africa, and that's Malidoma and Sobonfu Some, who, in their purpose in life, came to America bringing this ancient wisdom from Africa so that it could have legs in the Western world.
Mhm.
And for me, it reconnected me to a part of myself that I couldn't have gotten access to any other way, because it reawakened in me my indigenous wisdom, my connection back to my African ancestors. And I realized that that was a missing piece for so many Black people in this country. And so it's been this journey to kind of reclaim and recover and uncover this line back to where we came from. And then to discover this incredible technology for healing and for growth and evolution. It was just mind-blowing to me. And I think one of the greatest gifts that I received from Melodome and Sobonfu was this message that I was born full. I was born full. That I had a purpose in life that I was born with. And that I had inside of me a genius, and this gets into multiple intelligences, for being able to bring that purpose out into the world. And so instead of me looking outside of myself to get the validation for what I was feeling called to do, I could look inside myself and I could say, does this resonate with me? How does this feel with me? And so the book is a companion piece to the Wisdom Walk programs that I created and facilitated for 5 years at the Alma Center, which now Floyd Roll, one of my first participants, is now the steward of, so beautifully. And I wanted the men to have something in hand to remind them of the work.
So I encourage others to look the book up. We will post it on our website so that people can find you. I'm incredibly grateful, Jojopah. Thank you for spending some time with me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the important and very, very, very powerful work that you're doing through Sojourner, you know, to help women reclaim their power, and to really learn how to love themselves and not need to be reliant on anybody or anything in order for them to access that.
That gets us back to freedom, right? This concept of personal sovereignty, right? Which you talk a lot about. So thanks for taking me to school tonight.
You're so welcome.
I love you, and it's good to be with you.